Ontario is. It's by Lake Ontario. It's at the mouth of the St. Lawrence River, so he's around there. He married a gal that had moved from France also. He married her in 1837 in that area, in Cape Vincent, New York area. And they had 7 children. So listen closely, okay? There's John, and then Frances is the daughter, and then Stephen, who we are all descended from, and then Mary, and then Baptiste, that's a boy, by the way, and then Anne, and then Julia. Okay, there's 7 of them there. I've never, other than a census record in 1850, I've never seen anything with Baptiste in it. He died before 1860 census, apparently. The rest of them, we kind of know where they're at, except for Anne. I've never found any more information on Anne. So, but anyway, I'll fill it in. But this is an old school record. I found it online just a couple weeks ago. It's 1932. And it's from Cape Vincent, New York. And I'm like, why would I even look here? I'm not even going to look because they moved away in 1861 from New York. And I'm like, well, Subra's pretty rare. I'll just do a search anyway. And lo and behold, I find a record. Let me read it here. Old School Record, it's called, the title. This is for Doris. And by the way, Doris and I went on a date the other night. She can tell you all the details. So she'll appreciate this. The following, which was sent us by Miss Florentine Vincent, is a copy of the attendance record of Mud Creek School, District Number 23, Town of Cape Vincent, from December 19th, 1854 to March 9th, 1855, and gives the names of the pupils and the number of days they attended school. There's 38 kids listed, and I don't know if they started in December and ended in March, if that was a whole year's, it's probably a whole year's worth of school for what they did. 38 of them, the highest is 63 days, the lowest is like 4 days. You're more likely not to go to school when you're older or if you're a girl, okay? Not necessarily, but that's kind of the trend here. But they list 5 Subras at this school, and there's no order unless that's the way they sat in the school or something, I don't know. But they listed Stephen Subra first. He went 52 days. They spell it Baptiste, B-E-T-T-I-C-E, and that's probably Baptiste, but they were kind of French, right? So Baptiste, they probably pronounce it like Baptiste, and so therefore they just spelled it the way it sounded. But he went to school 28 days. Okay, he's a little bit younger. And then John Subra is the oldest brother. He's 32 days. Mary went 19 days. Frances, the oldest daughter, went 6 days in that whole time period. And I think that's all. That's 5 of them. And anyway, the above was signed by George McPherson, the teacher, and sworn before A.C. Hanlon, Justice of the Peace, March 15th, 1855. Okay, so it's the earliest record I found other than a census record. And just a couple of things, I'll go down the list. John, who's the oldest, died in the Civil War in 1864. He was killed on May 31st, 1864. If you know where Atlanta's at, just west of Atlanta, right before Sherman went in to take Atlanta. John was killed probably it was a skirmish. He was, what do they call that? My brain's gone. But Danny, do you remember or Cheryl maybe, the picket lines? They were the guys out front. And so I found actually the description of the battle and stuff that, he was one that had died during that time. Just the General Hood's men had sent out people to try and field the lines, and he got killed one of those days. He's buried in Marietta, Georgia, at the huge national federal graves site there.
It's beautiful.
It is. It takes your breath away. There's so many. It's just full, hills and hills of white, mostly Sherman troops. Frances married before they moved away from New York. She married Daniel Marshall. They moved to Wisconsin with the family, then to Minnesota with the family, and then they ended up settling in South Dakota. So I don't remember the details there. But Daniel Marshall's wife, or mom rather, is buried in Claremont Street Cemetery. So they moved all the way that way. Stephen, he joined the Civil War too. He fought in the cavalry rather than the infantry. John fought in the infantry, and he lived to tell about it because we're all here. And he ended up getting land. His dad died in Wisconsin. His dad's buried in Lamartine, just south of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. If you drive the highway, if you knew what you're looking for, you could see his tombstone as you're going by. It's just visible as all get out. But anyway, they moved to Minnesota and got land just south of Claremont. It's called Ripley Township, and it's just west of Rochester. There's Casson, Dodge Center, and Claremont, and he married a gal named Sarah Vorse and lived down there until Sarah died. When they had 3 kids, and their daughter was 15 months old when Sarah died. He eventually remarried and married a gal named Margaret Steele, and they moved to Vinton, Iowa, and that's where Stephen's mother, Frances from France, who married the first Stephen, that's where she's buried, in Vinton, Iowa. So they kind of made the rounds there. Then Mary, the 4th child, she married a gal in Wisconsin by the name of Charles Scott. They had a little boy, and then Charles died. And then she remarried a guy named Isaac Brennan, and they had several kids. They're named after John, Francis, Stephen. It's kind of easy to grab onto. But yesterday, the kids and I stopped by Casson, and we talked to Eva Brennan. That's the second husband.